Hello, everyone, and welcome to our A3 webinar series. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Stop Planning and Start Producing, an automation blueprint for growing your business. My name is Jackie Rose, and I'm the Marketing Communications Manager for the Association for Advancing Automation, and I'll be your moderator today. Attendees viewing this webinar are in listen-only mode, which means that you're muted. If you have any questions today, you can submit them in the question panel to the right of your screen in the GoToWebinar app. We will try to address as many as we can by the end of the program. This webinar is being recorded and a link will be sent to you within the next 24 hours. The webinar is brought to you by the Association for Advancing Automation, also known as A3, the leading automation trade association in the world for robotics, vision and imaging, motion control and motors, and industrial artificial intelligence technologies. We are the hub for all your automation resources. Products, partners, new applications, trainings, and all information on the latest technologies and innovations. Visit automate.org to learn more. I'd like to thank our exclusive sponsor of today's webinar. Rapid Robotics as a Service approach removes traditional barriers to robotic automation and enables manufacturers to easily automate common operator tasks. They are pioneers of affordable, out-of-the-box robotic automation solutions that can be deployed in weeks. Thanks to innovative computer vision and artificial intelligence, Rapid Robotics can pre-train their robots on multiple tasks, making it possible for customers with changing needs to redeploy their robots to new tasks in as little as 60 seconds. Rapid Robotics takes care of everything, from assessing your facility for automation opportunities, to task design, programming, and installation, to 24/7 remote monitoring and service for the lifetime of your relationship. It's now my pleasure to introduce your presenters for today's webinar. Steve Barsanti has over a decade of experience working in operations, manufacturing, and deployment for various startups specializing in hardware and software in the Bay Area. Prior to Rapid, Steve worked at Carbon Robotics and Skycatch. Steve currently runs the deployment team, managing operations and customer relationships, and ensures automation is designed to meet customer expectations. Steve's breadth of experience in operations and professional service is one that places the customer first. As both a sales leader and startup veteran, Mandy Dwight is passionate about bringing innovative robotic technologies to industries that have often been underserved by the advances in automation. Her career has spanned many sectors of the robotics industry, including full-stack robotic order fulfillment solutions, collaborative robots, robotic software platforms, and research and development robots. As VP of Business Alliances at Rapid, Mandy collaborates with customers to increase their production while saving costs with the help of quick deploying robotic automation. Welcome so much to Steve and Mandy, and I'll now turn this webinar over to both of you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And it's nice to meet everyone. So I think we'll start by talking about the 5-year automation plan that many people seem to have that in many cases are now 10 years old. And these plans are very appropriate to have. And I think one of the big problems is that things get really busy on a factory floor. So they often get put on a shelf as everyone is dealing with more important things on a day-to-day basis. I think another problem with that 5-year automation plan is that there's this utopian goal of lights out automation. And lights out automation is great as a goal for maybe the third shift, but in many cases, it ends up being a situation where perfect is the enemy of good. And so what we're going to talk about a lot today is why it's really, really important to get started with your automation journey as quickly as you possibly can. And also about how that humans are going to be part of that workforce for the foreseeable future, and how to mix both have a hybrid workforce of robots and labor. And so, the one takeaway from this webinar today is that it's time to stop planning your automation and just get started. And so with that, I'll pass to Mandy to talk a little bit more about why.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next slide, this is a little bit dire, but throw your automation plan in the garbage. And this is something we'll talk a little bit about today. And as Steve alluded to, it's fine to have that plan, but what can you do right now? So moving on to the next slide, at Rapid Robotics, we're very concerned about the state of the industry, the state of manufacturing. So we put out a survey to 300 manufacturing leaders to learn a little bit more about what their concerns are. And what came back, time and time again, is labor. And these stats on the screen, I'm sure it's not shocking to anybody, here that's listening in today. But 92% are currently hiring. And, this is not for one job. This is for 6 to 10 jobs. This is for, more than 10 jobs. That's staggering. What's not written here is the fact that the turnover rate a lot of times with these companies is about 20%. I mean, that's really high. And Steve and I, we go to facilities all the time and we hear the stories. It's, 800 people called in sick the day after Black Friday. How do you meet your numbers with that? It is, this person came in, I trained them, and then, after lunch, we didn't see them again. These are things that manufacturers are dealing with every single day. And if you look, on the left-hand side of the screen, our colleagues over at the NAM are predicting that by 2030, there'll be 2.1 million unfilled jobs in this sector. So, part of it is, what are we going to do right now? Because this will have real effects on manufacturers' businesses. So, moving on, to the next slide, we're in a good place here with manufacturing. It's growing in the US, but it needs to grow more. When I talk to customers, when I go on site, I ask about what their goals are. And a lot of times I hear things like, well, I want to grow my business year over year, double my business year over year, if not more. But that's a very daunting task when you can't even meet the existing production numbers that you have today. So, this is another, piece of that survey, but it really does tell that story. So if we can't support manufacturers now, how can we grow that? They'll miss out on revenue, miss targets, not grow business, and, lose to competitors. So moving on to the next slide, it is a dire crisis. And, this is daunting, solvable. But really, why are we in, some of the situation that we're in? So if you look, there's a very large number of unfilled machine operator jobs today. And, look at the average age of the people that are working right now at that job. It's about 48 years old. And those people will soon be aging out of the workforce and leaving. So, how do we attract new talent to these jobs? And we'll talk about this in a little bit. How do we upskill to keep these workers so maybe they stay on? And again, our friends at the NAM, 2 million, for a projected worker shortage possibly by 2030. But that's not to mention the amount of lost revenue, around $1 trillion that the US could see by 2030 if we don't do something to really help this. So, what do you think about that, Steve, as far as
yeah. I mean, what I would say there is, you don't necessarily need to throw your automation plan away, but that also just tells you need to get started now. And I think that there are definitely some really smart ways of getting started. And so, yeah, I think we'll go into that next.
Absolutely. So future of workforce is hybrid. So this is interesting, and Steve has some interesting thoughts on this because he does a lot of our deployments where he sees robots and people together. So moving on to the next slide. This is an interesting one. So this is on the right-hand side of the screen, 90% of manufacturers still don't have a robotic arm. And this is a statistic that comes out of MIT. And when I first read this statistic, it's something that was really interesting to me because it's so contradictory to what we hear in the media. Oftentimes it's, automation or manufacturing facilities are heavily automated. Most of them are lights out. Robots have already taken everybody's jobs. Things are very dire. We in the industry, which is likely many of us on this call, know that that is not the case. Yet we also, as industry professionals, know that robots are capable of doing 80% of common tasks. So, this is interesting watching these two things together on the screen. So, Steve, if this is the case, why don't manufacturers have robots in their facility? This is a very high number.
Yeah, so I do a ton of factory walks, and I talk to a lot of prospects or customers. I think one of the biggest challenges is in task selection, and that comes down to how you're looking at how you want to start your automation journey. So many of our customers bring us in and they immediately bring us to their problem child on the floor, right? This is the task that we have the most difficulty with. And whether that's, for technical, reasons, it's highly complex, or, quality problems, things like that. And my first response is, well, this is probably not the place for us to start. And it's always best, when you're looking at automation, is don't look for what's hard, because what's hard for humans is likely going to be difficult for robots as well. And look for what's easy, because those are the things where if it's really easy, you shouldn't have a highly skilled person working on that task. You should automate that, and you should move that highly skilled person to something that is more complex. So my first advice would be to really take a step back and figure out what is your goal. If your goal is to reduce your labor burden, then don't look for the most complicated, challenging task on your floor and think that, okay, well, I want to automate that away. Look for what is really easy so that you can free up your labor to then go work on those really challenging tasks. And I'd say about 80% of the tasks that we see can be handled by a robot. So there's a lot of opportunity on the floor. It's just avoiding that 20%, which I know that 20% tends to be the most enticing to automate, because it's a problem. You want to be able to flip a switch and not have to think about it ever again. But the reality is that those usually are projects that that are challenging for automation as well. And so if you really want to get started quickly, I would say look for super highly repetitive tasks, and avoid the ones that are a lot more challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask you about, there was the term on the slide before, hybrid workforce. So what does that mean for you when you do a factory walk? What does that term mean?
Yeah, so it's basically the opposite of the lights out automation, like I said, utopian goal. It's let's make the most of the team that you have in place and automate as much of that as possible. It's often much easier to slide a robot in line with operators so that you don't have to come up with highly complex solutions to make it so that there is zero operators involved at all. But if you just have one operator overseeing 4 or 5 robots on your floor, that opens up a whole lot more opportunity for automation, because you can then have somebody in the mix that is doing the things that the robot just simply cannot do. So the hybrid workforce is truly just a blend of humans and robots. And that lights out automation just sometimes is never going to be achievable. And so I'd say, like I said earlier, the more you can move the operators to those higher margin, more complex tasks, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, moving on, to talk about, other options, right? So there are, if you're not automating now, you're really doing a disservice, because there's a lot of hidden costs in that. So, if we look at injury rates, for instance, studies have shown that by implementing automation in robots, you can save injury rates by about 35%. Not to mention, robots are really good at very tedious tasks, machine tending tasks that are ergonomically challenging on wrists, palletizing tasks that are ergonomically challenging on just about every piece of the body. So those types of things can be done right away to really save on injuries and really help with employee wellness inside your facility. Speaking again, of employee wellness, I mean, operator turnover is a large challenge, especially some of the companies that have trouble maintaining staff. Steve mentioned the idea of the hybrid workforce. I mean, it's a great idea to have, staff that were previously machine tending, now all of a sudden they step back and they're managing a bank of robots. So, you know, an upskilling opportunity for staff, you know, to maintain labor. Not to mention robotic automation and other types of automation can really draw a younger clientele into this type of workforce. So, you know, the idea of going to work and managing robots all day is very advantageous to your hiring practices, to your HR department. And then the final thing, really, consistency. If you look at human consistency, we're good, but we're not that good. You know, I'm great for a couple hours, and then, you know, maybe my productivity could drop off a little bit. That's real, right? So robots are consistent. Robots can do the same task over and over with consistent throughput, consistent accuracy, all of those different things. So yeah, definitely a big help there. And then moving on, you know, we think about, you know, it's daunting, right? You know, Steve talked about the 5-year automation plan, and it's kind of like, where do you start? And, you know, you start small. You start with a little piece. You know, what can you do today? You know, Steve talked about the easy to do tasks, the low hanging fruit. You know, where can you go in and get immediate ROI? That's where you start. Start someplace and then constantly review the process, check the progress, see how that's going. And oftentimes that's going to reveal the next place where you should be automating inside your facility. It doesn't have to be lights out all at once.
And to, you know, in terms of finding those tasks, I think what I tend to look for when I'm doing a factory walk is, for one, where's the repetition? That is first and foremost going to be the best place to start. And then, you know, from there you start prioritizing based on margin. Where are you going to get the most ROI for the automation? You typically want to look at volume and say, okay, well, is there enough volume for automation to work in this task? Because, you know, if it's something like, you know, where it's going to run for an hour and then switch to a new task, and then, you know, there's some level of mix that automation will work with. But in the ideal case, if you have your higher volume tasks automated, that's going to be the best for automation. And then looking at skill required. If it is a task that requires a ton of dexterity, probably not best for a robot, right? If it requires 2 hands, or if you have to interact with multiple parts with, you know, with one, say, gripper, that's going to be a challenge. So look for, you know, like I said, the highly repetitive, high margin, high volume tasks, because those are the perfect places to start. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the biggest problems. Again, a lot of times I'll do factory walks and I'll be brought to a machine and there will be so many things wrong with that task, and I'll say, well, you know, we could automate this and here's what it will take. But, you know, in the corner of my eye, I'll see something that is just running very smooth and may not be a problem to the customer, but I'll start talking about that task. And before you know it, it becomes very obvious to both the customer and myself that that's where we should be starting. And then that will free up an operator that can go work on the more complex tasks. You know, there's also other considerations, things like what are humans not good at? For example, pattern recognition in visual inspection tasks. That's something where, you know, utilize computer vision to do those tasks, because it's going to be a much better fit than the operator who's, you know, maybe running off of 6 hours of sleep and didn't have their coffee that morning and is not paying as close attention to what they're looking at. And then you see errors slip through to your customers, and, you know, that's never fun for anyone. So I would say that those are the type of tasks that you're going to want to look at. And, you know, we've partnered with elementary robotics and found that, you know, there's a lot of value in automating inspection tasks. I think we're going to the next slide now, please.
All right. So yeah, so, you know, daunting numbers, you know, huge labor shortages, you know, Steve is helping us to understand that, you know, this is easy to do. It's something that you can start small, but, you know, people aren't doing it right now. And when I think of the 2 reasons, if you had to ask me, it would be time and money. You know, time, right? Deployments, you know, they take a long time. So at the small end, maybe 5 months for a robotic automation project to be deployed. I'm hearing from some automation providers that it can reach into maybe a year and a half. So depending on the project, it takes a lot of time. If you are a manufacturer that has an immediate need, sometimes you don't have that time to wait. And then of course costs, costs are very challenging. So, the typical CapEx spend for a robotic automation system can be between 300 to 700K. And that's really tough, to not know how that's going to work on your production, but also what happens if you need to change a product line, or what happens if you need to change, anything on your line. You've bought that equipment, you're getting that equipment installed within a year, and you may not have the same needs as a manufacturer.
Yeah, and then the other big one is flexibility. And many of our customers are contract manufacturers, and so the reason that traditional means of automating are daunting to them is because they're locking themselves into a large CapEx spend that has a very long payback period, and they have to trust that their customers are going to continue to renew contracts year after year in order to justify our customer spend on that automation. So Rapid's approach removes that barrier. You pay us monthly, and we come in and do all of the services to get that automation working. And if for whatever reason you lose that project, well, then we can move that task to another machine, or we can do a different automation project altogether. So Rapid really does provide the flexibility that traditional automation providers have been unable to provide, and that really has opened up a lot of eyes and for our customers in rethinking how they're looking at something. We've removed a lot of that risk, so they can now take on projects they normally would not consider.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, the picture there, of the robots just kind of, sitting kind of idle off the line is kind of an interesting one, because we see this often, and it breaks my heart because I love robots, and I can think of about a million places to put those on lines right now. But typically, we see that sometimes, and it's because that line maybe isn't used anymore, or maybe they lost the labor of the person that actually was the robot engineer, or the handler, if you will. So we see that often. Steve touched a little bit on Rapid Robotics as a RAS, a robots as a service provider. So on the next slide, we can take a look at really what that means. So, many of us in the industry are really believing that robots as a service, or RAS, is something that is an immediate help to an industry that is in trouble and has, a daunting challenge before it. And robot as a service, what is that? So we help to automate right away, and we deploy at scale. We deploy quickly, and the solutions are really built for you. What that means, we deploy in weeks. Rapid Robotics, Steve and I both work there. We deploy in weeks. We charge a monthly subscription service, which means that there's no large capital outlay, like you saw in the cost before. So it's something that everybody can try. And really the best part for the industry is you pay when the robots start working. So you don't pay up front like some of the larger projects that we've seen in the past. You pay the bill, and then the robot comes 10 months later. This is the robot arrives, and then you start actually paying. So those are kind of like the financial model, the deployment schedule, kind of like the speed in which units are out the door and helping manufacturers right away. Steve, can you walk us through on the next slide some of the other benefits that you're seeing in the RAS model?
Yeah, so what makes this model really advantageous for our customers is the fact that Rapid is incentivized by our customer success. For this business model to work for Rapid, it means that we need our customers to renew year after year. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that they're constantly happy and being satisfied with the automation on their floor. Beyond that, we are not just looking for a project, installing it, and moving on to the next. It really is a long-term relationship that we establish with our customers that starts in the very beginning. We do a lot of consulting when we're doing factory walks, and like I've touched on it many times in this webinar about, hey, maybe that's not the right task to automate. Have you considered this? And I think that's part of our service that is often that's often overlooked, but it's a really valuable aspect to what we do. Like I said, we need to make sure that our customers are going to be successful, because that's what keeps them happy, that's what keeps them renewing. And so it is really that consultative approach, and making sure that they're also making money off of these robots. So I think that's a really important aspect to it. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then like I touched on, it removes the risk. There's a predictable monthly cost. You won't have to worry about 3 of your robot arms breaking in a given month and having to outlay a whole bunch of cash to fix those. The subscription model is all inclusive, and so when something goes wrong, we don't come on site and try to take the robot apart and fix it. We literally just unbolt it, bolt a new robot on, and we go and fix it at our office. And we, our focus is getting our customers back into production as quickly as possible. So, from a financial standpoint, you can very easily predict your yearly and even monthly spend on your automation projects, because it is all included from a service and maintenance standpoint. So it really does, like I said, remove a lot of the risk from our customers. And that ROI, is long-standing. So I think that the graph over here really paints a very interesting picture. I think it's very easy to say, oh well, over X amount of time, won't it just be cheaper to buy this and own it myself? Well, that's not necessarily true. When you start looking at how much it costs to maintain these systems and to fix problems, and every time you have to initiate a service call to have somebody come out and repair something, those costs add up, and they add up really quickly. And so by paying a low monthly fee and knowing that everything is going to be covered, not only is it predictable, but it's actually cheaper. And so I think we've spent a lot of time working on graphs like this to prove that point. And I think this is just a really good example of that. Next slide, please. So, like I said, that flexibility is really, really important to us, and we're really invested in the long-term success. We also, we are a Silicon Valley startup, right? And we utilize the technologies that exist in our field to make this faster to deploy and more flexible. We've recently come up with something called Smart Setup, which allows us to very easily move robots in between tasks. It allows us to pull robots away for maintenance and very easily put them back into production. So this is just another form of the flexibility that we offer via our Smart Setup capabilities. And so you see it in action here in this GIF of one of our technicians moving robot between 2 different projects. Next slide, please. So the speed. So this is the one thing that my team is focused on primarily. I think it is maybe one of our biggest competitive advantages is we're hearing lead times from competitors of months, if not close to a year, and we really focus on being able to deploy really quickly. So we do in-house prototyping, manufacturing, so that we can very quickly iterate on gripper designs, work cell designs. We have some secret sauce that I can't exactly talk about on the software end that allows us to very, very quickly come to highly reliable automation designs. We take a modular approach to how we build things. So oftentimes we are not reinventing the wheel. We're adapting designs that we've already done to fit the needs of our customers. And all in all, it's all in service of making sure that, you know, when we commit to a project, we really can stand behind that, you know, 6-week lead time that we offer. And I think that is, you know, pretty much unmatched in the market today. And it's not easy to achieve, let me tell you that. But it definitely is something that our customers need, because, like I said in the very beginning of this webinar, now is the time to automate, and you want to get those robots on your floor as quickly as possible. Next slide. And you know, lastly, I did touch on this a little bit earlier, but being able to support our customers is paramount to not only the success of the project, but the success of Rapid. You know, it is like I said, we are incentivized to make sure that our customers are renewing year after year. And in order to do that, we have to we put our customers first and make sure that they are constantly being supported. Our goal is to maintain, you know, maximum utilization and minimal downtime of these robots, like it says on the slide. We have 24/7 support. We do a lot of our support via laptops from San Francisco, from our Detroit office, and in the event that something is needed on site, you know, we are there very, very quickly. So you know, this is, again, all in service of making sure that our customers stay happy. And to date, it's I'm you know, very happy to say that it is working for sure. We have a lot of really, really happy customers, and you know, they love working with our team, and, you know, our support team in particular. So I think with that, we will move to Q&A.
Yeah, before we do that, Steve, one thing that I want to mention is if anything did resonate with you that you heard today and you're interested in learning more, we will be at Automate, which A3 is a great partner of ours. We will be at Automate coming up in May. We'll be in booth 5620 if you'd like to, you know, stop by and see us and ask us questions. We get that a lot. You know, we go to trade shows and somebody comes up and says, I have this video of this task, you know, can you automate this for me? So bring us your tasks. You know, we can work with you right on site there to set up a factory visit in which we will go in at no cost and really look at your processes. And as Steve talked about, you know, how do you set up that hybrid workforce? How do you look for those easy to automate tasks, the immediate ROI? You know, those are the things that we're very good at. So please, you know, let us know how we can do that for you.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you both so much.
We see a lot of tasks, so you know, we're the experts in telling you the best place to start your automation journey.
Perfect. Appreciate that. And of course, we're very much looking forward to Automate as well. And so we are excited that you guys will be there and folks can come and see you. And I just wanted to point out there's a couple of people in the audience that are raising their hands. And so folks, I want to remind you, because you're muted, I can't call on you if you raise your hand. So if you could please type your question into the box, and then I'll be sure that I can ask the questions here, but we will go ahead and get started. So the first one we have, you know, somebody was asking, you kind of just touched on a long-term purchase of, you know, somebody's own equipment. And so, you know, they really want you to talk more about that. Like, isn't our, you know, RAS kind of just a short-term fix? And if you could maybe talk a little bit more on why it doesn't make more sense for a long-term purchase.
Steve, do you want to tackle that one, or do you want me to?
Yeah, maybe you go ahead and I can chime in.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, there's one thing, you know, CapEx, the thing about that is once you buy the equipment, you know, you will always need to maintain that equipment. So no matter what, you might have a joint in a robot go in several years. You know, yes, you own the equipment, but that's a large additional cost to you. When you work with a RAS provider, you know, like Rapid Robotics, we're always maintaining that. We have examples in which our customers never even know that there's a problem with a robot because we're able to fix it before production goes down. If that CapEx equipment belongs to you, you know, that's not something that you have. You know, I look at it also, you know, Microsoft Word, right? I'm old, so I remember when they used to send me a disk of Microsoft Word and I put it in my computer and I loaded it and it lived there. But now I live in a world where Microsoft Word is a cloud product, and every couple weeks it'll send me a notification, Mandy, you don't have the best version of Word, so I'm going to put that on here now. So we're the rapid robotics. We're the robotics solution of that. We'll detect and fix something before you even have to worry about it. So it is very similar to that whole model.
Yeah, I would, just to add to that, I think that's exactly right. Don't underestimate those ongoing maintenance costs. Whether you think you are or not, you are paying for even CapEx automation ongoing. With Rapid, you'll at least know exactly what those costs are going to be, and it is almost always going to be much cheaper than the like I said, requesting somebody to come on site, the fees associated with that, and not only that, the loss of revenue when it comes to, oh, well, I can be there in 3 or 4 days, right? And I know that our customers can't be down for 3 or 4 days while somebody gets scheduled to go and visit the site. So for our model, we anticipate supporting our customers, and so we are always ready to go on site. It's not something where, oh, it's a project that we did 3 years ago and now they're having a problem, let's relearn what's going on there and go on site and fix it. We're always ready. And what we've seen in the past is just on talking about support, many of our customers, they will say, yeah, well, you guys are out here in within a day, if not sooner. And many of our other machines, when they go down, it takes a week for somebody to come out. So I think, not only is there the cost of actually having a maintenance tech come out and fix things, but there's that lost revenue that goes along with it, that all of these things add up, and it really does become more expensive.
Another question we had come in is, what robot brands do you work with, or is that customer dependent?
Well, actually, Mandy, you're the perfect person to answer that one.
I was thinking it was you, but I'll take it. So
Yeah.
no, I mean, we do have some strong partners. I mean, we recently, you probably saw this released in January, but we added, 2 very strong robot partners to our portfolio, robotic arm. So that's the entire Yaskawa series, as well as the Universal Robots, their entire series as well. And it is customer dependent on task. For more industrial tasks, we'll use a certain type of robot arm. For anything that needs to be collaborative, we'll use another type of arm. But yeah, we're really proud to have some of those partners. We choose partners based on speed. If you're called Rapid Robotics, you need to get robots out there to customers in weeks, not months, not years. So our providers are fantastic with getting us those arms, within a week or 2 of when we need them, and then we deploy very fast after that.
And the reason we wanted to have multiple partners is because we want to have the ability to choose the right robot for the right task. And so, I think that we have a really good spread between our 2 partners that we're working with today, and we have the ability, like I said, to say, okay, what does this project need, and not be limited to, okay, well, we have this one vendor that we can work with. We really do have the flexibility to make sure that we're sizing the right robot for that project.
Great, and it actually kind of leads into one of the next questions is, you touched on this during your presentation as well, and I think obviously we can tell it's top of mind for our audience because it's now come up a couple of times, but I've had people give me, excuse me, a 5-month lead time, and with you working with multiple partners, how can you claim to move so much faster?
A lot of it is in the way we design and install our robots. We are specifically looking for the right task that Rapid knows that we can confidently automate quickly. So that's where it starts, is in task selection. And second, we have a team that has been working at this pace for quite a long time. And so I mentioned we're not reinventing the wheel. I mentioned that we have some proprietary tools that are helping us move really quickly, and we're utilizing technology to help us make sure that we not only are able to design the task really quickly, limit iterations, but also provide our customers with a really highly reliable solution. Yes, we move fast, but that's not at at the cost of reliability. We would be shooting ourselves in the foot because of the fact that we also do support it. So we can't just get something out and say, all right, that's done, wash our hands of it. It has to be reliable, and it has to you know, it can't be a support headache once it's installed. So you know, I know that it sounds unreal, and I would say put us to the test.
You know, something too that I want to add, you know, in the 3+ years that we've been deploying robots, and let me tell you, there's tons of robots out there. We can't give the exact numbers, but we have never had a robot returned to Rapid Robotics. And that tells me that our solution is working every single day. You know, customers are happy. If anything, a customer will say, you know, these first couple robots were great. You know, when can I work with you to get 10 more in here? And that's something that we hear very often.
Yeah, that's great. And so, you know, another question that kind of goes along with what you were discussing and how you can deploy so quickly because you are selecting the right tasks. So somebody else asked, you know, do we need to have a specific project in mind when we call you, or will you come in and tour the facility and make recommendations on where we can start?
Absolutely not. And the reason I'm smiling is because I actually prefer it when our customers say, just come see our factory and let us know where you think you can automate. It opens up so many more opportunities for us to be creative and for us to guide our customers into the right projects. It's actually more difficult when they say, this is the only thing we want you to look at, and we want you to automate this project. Because, you know, yes, maybe we can automate that, and we'd love to help our customers if that is their problem child. But giving us the ability to come in and use our expertise and say, we know we can automate this project very quickly, highly reliably, that is definitely the best relationship to have with our customers. So I would say, even if you do have a task in mind, be open to allowing us to look at the rest of your floor and offer some suggestions.
Perfect, great. And so the next question said, I stepped away for a moment, but saw that you mentioned instant ROI. Could you re-explain that, please?
Sure.
Yeah,
you want to
absolutely.
take that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, because you know, the robot, you know, you pay for the robot when it's actually installed, and there's no, you know, kind of money up front. When that robot shows up to work, you're automatically, you know, experiencing ROI on that. So, you know, you have guaranteed labor that showed up. You have production that is stable and going at a constant rate. So immediately, you know, you're not in the hole of having, you know, this large CapEx expense. You know, you're kind of paying as you go. So that's really the best way that you know, we can describe that. So you don't have the problem of, you know, somebody, you know, left after lunchtime, or, you know, somebody called in sick the next day. The robot's there reliably. So immediate ROI on that, and you pay as you go.
Great. And how do you see something like this, you know, the RAAS or the RAS process working if somebody already had existing, you know, a robotic application or a robotic cell on their factory? How might you work together or combine with something like that?
So I can speak to that from a technical standpoint. You know, many of our customers already have robots on their floor, and in many cases, we actually start interfacing with certain robots on their floor. So I know we have a customer right now in the Detroit area where we are tending a robot cell. So we are picking parts, placing it into fixtures for a robot to then take and do an overmolding process. So, you know, we're not scared when we see robots on the floor, and you know, I think that it gives us the opportunity to say, well, here's a task that you may not have thought about automating because of X, Y, or Z. Now with our new approach, you know, we're able to potentially do a project like that because you don't have this huge CapEx expense that you need to worry about. So, you know, yeah, we interface with other robots all the time. I don't think that is something to shy away from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of our deployments are in brownfield facilities in which we come in, there's existing machines that the customer is very happy with, and we interface with those. And also we really see this large infrastructure in which, you know, all the automation in the facility works together. You know, it can't just be that you put in this one robot and that's all the facility needs. Like, everything really needs to work as an orchestra together. And that is conveyance, that is AMRs bringing goods to and from the robot. There's different infrastructures that are really needed. So, we do very few greenfields. It's often, brownfield facilities in which, Steve was talking about, just making a process a little bit more aligned or replacing that one person that was helping in that process before.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it. And so one of the things that we like to ask our panelists kind of as we come to wrap up is, obviously you've been in this, you said, the last 3 years or so, it's kind of a new and up and coming thing that's very exciting. And what do you see the next 3 years? What do you see the next 5 years looking like? And how do you see this growing?
I'll start. I really do think that this is the future of automation, this type of a model. I think that more and more customers are going to adapt the service model for their automation needs because it does make sense financially. And I think that as larger and larger manufacturers start taking this on, and I think that you'll see kind of a big group of people start opening their eyes to the RAS model. You saw this in software, right? Everyone used to buy their software and like Mandy said, receive a disk and install it. And in today's world, that's not the case at all, right? And so I think that this is that next switch. And I think that there's many other sectors that are going in this direction, and it just makes so much sense for robotics. So I'd say in 3 to 5 years, one, Rapid is going to have a ton of robots in the field, and two, we won't be the only ones doing this model, but hopefully we're well ahead.
Yeah, and I'd agree with Steve. I mean, the RAS, that took off years ago with AMR, and now, it's tried and true. Everyone knows that AMR is a RAS, that's how you do it, and it allows you to grow your fleet like in minutes, right? Oh, I want more of those, send me another 20, right? And it allows businesses to grow. The early days of Rapid is we found that small, medium manufacturers were really interested in our model because it allowed them to get started with robots for the first time. And we're finding now, large enterprise accounts are calling us and saying, hey, I have these really high-powered engineers that I want to put on really hard problems, but can you help me automate packaging? But can you help me automate palletizing or inspection? So, can you do the easy things to free up my really intellectual, high-cost labor to do other things? And I think, as Steve mentioned, that's going to grow and be the norm. Not to mention, it's really very free. So if the C-suite, the decision makers want to not think about their production ever being shut down and worry about not making numbers, this is going to continue to grow and grow.
Yeah, I think that, Mandy, you just made a great point. There's many times where I'll go to a factory and I'll meet the automation team. And instead of thinking, oh, well, they have an automation team, why are they going to need us? My first question to them is, tell me about all the projects that you want to be working on, but you just don't have time for, right? Those are the ones that Rapid can take on. And like Mandy said, allowing the automation teams that exist at these factories to focus on the really complex, really challenging projects, and allow Rapid to take off all of the low-hanging fruit that they just don't want to spend their time on. I know automation engineers want to work on hard projects, and I'm totally fine with them doing so. And let's let Rapid do all the easy stuff.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Well, we are going to move on. I'll come back to Steve and Mandy here at the end for a second, but I'm just going to take a moment here to plug some of our upcoming things. But I did want to thank both Steve and Mandy so much for your expertise and your guidance on this webinar today. But I do invite everybody here to join us for our next webinar, and that is getting started with industrial simulation. You can register for free at automate.org/webinar. And as we already mentioned once, Automate is back in Detroit, May 22nd through the 25th. The discoveries that await you at Automate can change the game no matter your size, and no matter your industry, and no matter the stage of your automation. Don't miss the chance to get hands-on with efficiency boosting automation and learn directly from the experts how it can help you operate better. Register free at automateshow.com. We hope you found this webinar to be interesting and informative. If you have any questions about A3 or about today's topic, you can send an email to any of these contacts here you see on the screen. You can see Steve's email, Amanda's email, and then myself. As a reminder, this webinar has been recorded, and an email with a link to the recording will be sent to you within the next 24 hours. Steve and Mandy, thank you again so much for presenting. And we do thank Rapid Robotics for your sponsorship. And we thank all of our listeners here for your support. And so until next time, thank you all for joining us.